My name is Linda. I'm 58 years old, married to my husband Mark for what feels like a lifetime. 33 years, to be exact. We've built a quiet life in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. Our 2 kids are grown and scattered across different states now, living lives I watch mostly through photos and the occasional Sunday phone call. Mark works in corporate finance and has been with the same company for nearly 20 years. I used to be a school librarian, but I took early retirement last year. Lately, I've found myself filling time with gardening, reading, and attending the occasional charity function with Mark, dutifully playing the role of the supportive wife. It was one of those charity dinners that changed everything. The invitation came from Mark's boss, Gregory Nash, a name I'd heard over the years, but never met in person. Mark described him as sharp, traditional, and a bit distant, the kind of man who didn't waste time with pleasantries, but held a commanding presence in every room he entered. The event was being hosted at a private club downtown, one of those old-world places with dark wood paneling, soft piano music, and waiters who seemed to glide rather than walk. I remember feeling slightly self-conscious that evening. I had taken extra care with my hair, chose a navy dress I hadn't worn in years, and added a touch of lipstick that hadn't seen daylight since our youngest graduated college. I couldn't say why I tried so hard. It was just dinner. But something in me wanted to feel visible again. When we arrived, Mark introduced me to his colleagues with pride. I shook hands, made polite conversation, and tried to stay interested as they talked shop. Then Gregory approached. He was taller than I imagined, with silver-streaked hair, a clean-shaven jaw, and eyes that held you for a moment too long. His voice was calm, but there was something in it, something measured. "You must be Linda," he said, extending his hand. "Mark's told me you were once a librarian. I always thought librarians were the keepers of secrets." I smiled politely. "Only the good ones." His laugh was quiet, genuine. He didn't move on quickly like the others had. Instead, he stood there a while, asking about books I loved, authors I admired. He asked questions no one had asked me in years, about the things that lit me up inside. Later, at the table, I found myself seated between Mark and Gregory. The dinner was slow and drawn out, full of polite clinks of silverware and business anecdotes. At one point, someone mentioned a local author I admired. I chimed in, and Gregory turned toward me again. "I had no idea you were so passionate about writing," he said, almost as if it surprised him. I was about to respond when I felt it, his hand, just a light brush against mine beneath the table. It could have been accidental, but it lingered for a moment too long to dismiss as nothing. His fingers grazed my knuckles, warm and deliberate, before pulling away. I didn't look at him immediately. My heart had already started its quiet pounding, and I was suddenly aware of how warm the room had gotten. I glanced over. He was focused on someone else speaking, as if nothing had happened at all. But when his eyes flicked back toward me a few minutes later, there was a softness there, a quiet acknowledgement. I excused myself to the restroom not long after, needing a moment to breathe, to process what I was feeling. It wasn't attraction in the teenage sense, nor was it fear. It was something subtler. I felt seen. When I returned to the table, Mark was deep in conversation, and Gregory was sipping from a glass of red wine. He looked up at me as I sat down, and for just a second, his hand brushed mine again, this time less by chance. We didn't speak of it. We didn't need to. But I knew, even then, that something had shifted. Something quiet, something unexpected. And even though I told myself it was probably nothing, I couldn't deny the stir inside me, like the first page of a story I didn't know I had been waiting to read. The days after the dinner passed quietly, at least on the surface. Mark went back to his usual routine: early mornings, coffee in a travel mug, quick kisses on the cheek, and long hours at the office. I busied myself with the usual things: tending to my small rose garden, sorting through old photos, and wandering the local farmers market on Wednesdays. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the feeling of Gregory's hand brushing mine, the way his eyes had lingered on me with something that felt like recognition. It had been so long since someone looked at me like that, not out of obligation, not out of habit, but with genuine curiosity. Mark loved me, I never doubted that. But love after 30 years becomes quiet, familiar, folded into routines. Gregory's glance reminded me of something I had nearly forgotten: what it feels like to be noticed as a woman, not just a wife. A few days later, Mark came home and mentioned that Gregory had invited a few couples from the office to his home for a weekend gathering. He wants everyone to feel more connected. It's just a casual thing, he said, loosening his tie. Gregory insisted you come. Said he enjoyed talking with you. I tried to act nonchalant, but I could feel the heat rise in my cheeks. Did he? Mark didn't seem to catch it. He simply nodded and disappeared into the kitchen to warm up leftovers. That Saturday, we drove to Gregory's house, a beautiful colonial-style home tucked into a wooded stretch outside the city. The air was cool and sweet with early spring, and soft jazz floated out from the open windows. The gathering was small, 10, maybe 12 people, all mingling with drinks in hand, laughter echoing off the stone patio. Gregory greeted us at the door, his usual poised demeanor wrapped in casual charm. "Linda," he said with a warm smile, "you made it. I'm glad." His hand rested on the small of my back for just a second as he ushered us inside. It was subtle but deliberate. My body registered it before my mind had a chance to catch up. As the evening wore on, I found myself drawn into conversation with Gregory again. We stood near the fire pit in the backyard, the soft crackle of flames between us. Mark had wandered off to talk shop with some of the other men. Gregory handed me a glass of white wine. "You seemed distant earlier. Everything all right?" I hesitated, not wanting to admit how often I thought about our last interaction. "Just thinking," I said finally. "Sometimes I feel like I've turned invisible since retiring." He studied me for a moment. "You're far from invisible, Linda." There was something about the way he said my name that made it feel like a secret being gently spoken aloud. I glanced at the fire, feeling its heat on my face. "You're kind to say that." "It's not kindness," he said softly. "It's truth." We stood in silence for a moment, just the two of us beneath the darkening sky. Then gently, he reached for my hand. This time, it wasn't by accident. His thumb brushed across the top of my fingers in slow, deliberate circles. The gesture wasn't overt, wasn't demanding. It just was. "I shouldn't," I began, but the words caught in my throat. "You haven't done anything wrong," he replied calmly. "And neither have I." I didn't pull my hand away. I didn't lean into him either. I just let the moment hang there between us, like the scent of smoke and jasmine in the air. Eventually, someone called from the patio and we separated. But something in me had shifted again, deeper this time. It wasn't just about being noticed. It was about feeling awake, like something within me had quietly stirred from years of sleep. When Mark and I left later that night, Gregory's eyes found mine once more. No words, just that same soft glance, acknowledging what had passed without a trace of guilt or pressure. Only understanding. On the drive home, Mark hummed to the radio, content, and unaware. And I, sitting beside him, stared out at the moonlit road ahead, unsure of where this new path was leading, but unable to pretend it didn't exist. The week that followed felt different, like the rhythm of my life had subtly shifted a half step. Nothing was outwardly changed. Mark still read the paper every morning. I still folded laundry while old jazz played from our kitchen radio. But inside me, something was unraveling. Or maybe it was unfolding. I wasn't sure. Gregory hadn't called, hadn't written. Not that he had a reason to. There had been no promises, no exchanged numbers, nothing overt. Just a touch, a glance, a quiet energy that lingered long after the moment had passed. But then came Friday. Mark mentioned over dinner that Gregory had invited him to a new client dinner downtown. "It's mostly for appearances," he said between bites of roasted chicken. "Spouses are welcome, but I told him you probably wouldn't want to go to another long night of boring business talk." I didn't answer immediately. I watched the candle flickering in the center of the table, feeling the weight of the unspoken question settling in the air. "What if I did want to go?" I said finally, surprising even myself. Mark looked up. "You sure?" I could use a night out. And that's how I found myself, 2 nights later, in a soft burgundy dress and a silk scarf around my shoulders, walking into a quiet, upscale restaurant with low lighting and polished mahogany walls. Gregory was already there, speaking with someone near the wine display, but when he saw me, his expression changed. There was no smile at first, just a pause, a long look, then a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. "Linda," he said once we were all seated, "you look elegant." I thanked him quietly, careful not to overplay it with Mark sitting right beside me. Still, there was something unspoken passing between us again. A current, invisible to everyone else. Dinner moved slowly. Conversation spun around quarterly results, client expectations, market shifts. I nodded and sipped my wine, but most of my awareness was centered on the space between Gregory and me. There were no touches this time. No glances that would draw suspicion. Just restraint wrapped in decorum. But beneath it, a spark glowed steady. After dessert, Mark excused himself to take a work call. Gregory leaned slightly toward me once we were alone. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, his voice low. "I wasn't sure either," I replied. He studied my face. "You haven't stopped thinking about it." It wasn't a question, and I didn't deny it. "I've been married most of my life," I said quietly. "I don't want to be the kind of woman who gets swept up in something foolish." He nodded, and for a moment, I thought he might back away. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "I don't think you're foolish at all. I think you've just been quiet for too long." That struck something in me, a part I didn't even know had been aching to be heard. "I'm not asking for anything," he continued. "Not tonight. Maybe not ever. But if you ever want to talk, really talk, I'd like that."